Warm, gentle, storytelling music begins and fades into the background. Hello and welcome. Today, I want to share a story that feels like it's been whispered on the winter wind itself. A beautiful fairy tale from the Brothers Grimm. So, find a cozy spot, maybe with a warm drink, and let's travel together to a village blanketed in snow. Once upon a time, nestled in a valley where the snow fell like powdered sugar, there lived a poor orphan girl. This little girl had no family to call her own, no cozy home with a crackling fire, and her clothes were thin and worn, offering little comfort against the biting cold. Every day was a struggle. She would wander through the village, her small feet leaving tracks in the deep snow, knocking on door after door, hoping for a piece of bread or a warm place to rest, even for just a little while. But the winter was harsh, and it had made many hearts just as cold. Go away, some would say, shutting the door quickly. We have nothing for you. They were afraid of the creeping frost and the long dark nights, and their fear left no room for kindness. The little girl would simply nod, her breath a small white cloud in the frigid air, and continue on her lonely way. One evening, the sky turned a deep, bruised purple, and a fierce snowstorm began to rage. The wind howled like a wolf, and the snowflakes weren't soft and gentle anymore. They were sharp, icy needles, driving through the village. The orphan girl, shivering uncontrollably and feeling weaker than ever, tried one last time. She knocked on every door she could find, her tiny fists barely making a sound against the roar of the storm, but not a single door opened. Every window was dark, every home sealed tight against the blizzard. Exhausted and heartbroken, her hope began to fade. Just as she was about to give up, she spotted a small, forgotten barn at the edge of the village. The door was slightly ajar, creaking on its old hinges. With the last of her strength, she pushed her way inside. The air was still cold, but at least it was a shield from the wind. She saw a pile of hay in the corner, and it looked like the softest bed she had ever seen. She crawled into the hay, pulling it over herself like a blanket, and in moments, the world drifted away as she fell into a deep sleep. That very night, as the snowflakes danced and swirled in a wild ballet outside, a magical figure came gliding through the sky. It was the Snow Queen, her magnificent sleigh pulled by swift, white reindeer shining under the moonlight. She wore a crown made of the most delicate frost and a cloak woven from pure white ice that glittered with 1,000 tiny stars. Her presence was majestic, powerful, and utterly silent. As her sleigh passed over the old barn, a faint warmth, like the last ember of a dying fire, caught her attention. It was the warmth of a pure heart. She paused her journey and floated down, her feet never touching the ground. Peering inside, she saw the small, sleeping girl curled up in the hay, her face peaceful despite the cold that surrounded her. The Snow Queen, whose heart was often thought to be as frozen as her kingdom, looked at the child with a surprising gentleness. A soft, melodic whisper escaped her lips, carried on the frosty air. "Poor child," she murmured. "So young, so cold, and yet your heart glows with such kindness. She saw the goodness within the girl, a light that even the harshest winter couldn't extinguish. With a graceful wave of her elegant hand, a magical act unfolded. She didn't bestow a blanket of wool or fur, but a soft, downy blanket of snow that settled gently over the girl. But this was no ordinary snow. It sparkled like a field of diamonds, and to the touch, it was warmer, magical. Protective snow that could shield her from the deepest cold. The little girl, in her dreams, sighed contentedly, feeling a warmth she hadn't known since she was a baby. When the first rays of morning sun pierced through the cracks in the barn walls, the orphan girl slowly awoke. She blinked, expecting to see the same old dusty hay. Instead, she was surrounded by a miracle. All around her, beautiful white flower snowdrops were blooming right through the frost-covered floor, their heads bowed as if in greeting. She looked down at herself and gasped. Her ragged, thin clothes were gone. In their place, she wore a beautiful white dress that shimmered like moonlight on a frozen lake. And beside her, where there had been nothing but dirt and straw, lay a woven basket. It was overflowing with fresh bread, fruits, cheese, and even a small pouch heavy with golden coins. Then a voice as soft and clear as a winter bell echoed through the quiet barn. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Be kind and brave, little one," the voice said gently. "Share what you have, and your heart will always be warm." The girl knew, without a doubt, that it was the Snow Queen who had shown her such mercy. With a heart full of gratitude, the girl picked up the heavy basket. Her first thought wasn't of herself, of all the things she could now have. Her first thought was of the others. She walked back into the village, not as a beggar, but as a giver. She found other poor families shivering in their homes and shared her food. She gave coins to the elderly man who couldn't work and to the mother struggling to feed her children. She didn't keep the treasure for herself. She spread the Snow Queen's gift like seeds of hope. And a strange and wonderful thing began to happen. Wherever the orphan girl walked, the deep snow seemed to melt away at her feet, and tiny flowers would peek through the thawing ground. It was as if her kindness was bringing an early spring. The villagers watched in astonishment. They whispered that the Snow Queen herself had blessed the orphan girl, rewarding her pure and generous heart. Years passed. The little orphan girl grew into a kind and gentle woman, loved by everyone in the village. With the wealth she had been given and the love she had earned, she built a large, warm home. It wasn't for herself, but for all the poor and homeless children, a place where no one would ever be turned away on a cold winter's night. And every year, when the very first snowflake began to fall from the sky, she would step outside, tilt her head up, and smile. And if you looked closely, you could almost see it, to a bright, distant, shimmering light in the winter sky, like a single star shining just for her. It was the Snow Queen, looking down and smiling upon the child whose kindness had warmed even the coldest of seasons. Thank you so much for listening to this beautiful tale with me. If you enjoyed this story, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more fairy tales and folklore from around the world. It truly helps more than you know. Until next time, stay warm and be kind.